Chiefs are well on their way to free agency turnaround, but it's not just the tackles. There's still work to be done at that position and at one pass-catching type thing that Patrick Mahomes seems to always use the most of today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Back, everybody. It's Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free on every platform available. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. We're going to get into it. Matt Derrick is here to give us the inside gist of what's going on in free agency, who's coming, who's going, who might be back, who might not. We're going to get to him, but check all his work out over at ChiefsDigest.com. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix at RogueAPC.com. You can also check out my work at NFL33.com for all your front office meandering through the draft process, as well as RTR football. Matt, it's been a busy week. I didn't expect it to quite go the way that it went, but once the tag did not go on Orlando Brown, did you see them acting this aggressively towards a tackle position in signing Jawaan Taylor?
I certainly got the sense the Chiefs were going to act quickly and they were going to act decisively. I think that the fact that they went to Jawaan Taylor's direction was kind of a blindside to all of us. They did a pretty good job, I think, of keeping that fairly concealed. There's obviously been some smoke and some fire maybe in other directions too. Maybe they're not completely done. We will see. But no, it's certainly, I thought that there was a chance the Chiefs might be looking in some other directions other than Taylor. Mostly because, there was word about what Taylor's contract demands were, and the belief was he's a right tackle. So, until you really get the Chiefs were seeing some flexibility and maybe some options there. And that I think is one of the factors that's probably overlooked in about what the Chiefs move here and why they did what they did. The one thing that they have not had at that left tackle position since Eric Fisher left is stability. And that is one of two things that the Chiefs really needed. They wanted to be able to solidify that spot, at least one of those tackle spots, long term. They wanted to have somebody that they're comfortable with. And they didn't want to be in this situation where they were with Orlando with having to stare down over the franchise tag and maybe only a year-to-year situation with him. But they also want options. And that's the thing that Taylor does provide them, is that they have the ability to go any direction they want to now. They can address left tackle still. They can still address right tackle.
I hope that they have that flexibility, and I'm glad that you bring it up that way because I have questions. Questions abound here. But first, when we look at what the actual deal is for Jawaan Taylor, it is roughly 5.8 on the cap next year. But as you said, going right back up into that territory that they were rumored to be offering Orlando Brown. So in effect, what did this signing versus Brown do for them?
Well, and if you look at, what we're led to believe, I mean, we haven't really gotten numbers about what the Chiefs, if they ever really exchange numbers with Orlando Brown this year. I mean, it almost looks like that if you're really talking about contract, you may have to go back to last July about really seeing where the Chiefs and Orlando Brown last were. And the Chiefs' last offer and where Jawaan Taylor, I mean, that's a step down from what they were offering Brown last year. Now, maybe the Chiefs in their cursory talks with Brown and like I said, I don't get the sense that they really even got to that point this year with Orlando. I mean, I'm not even sure the numbers were ever even exchanged. I think it was a fairly short conversation once the Chiefs decided to move on. And so, but I think you can say that the Chiefs did step down their budget a little bit from what they would have been willing to invest in Orlando. And some of that is about the fact that they are investing in a player that isn't proven at left tackle, hasn't ever played, more than a couple of downs at left tackle in the NFL. There's a lot of question marks there, and there's no guarantee. Certainly Chiefs like what they see. They think that they have absolutely a reliable right tackle, but it keeps their options open because they can go a lot of different ways into the draft. But I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, they view this as even though this is the number 4 left tackle money, I mean, this would be the number 4 overall tackle money in the league. I think they still see this as a bit of a bargain, that this is a tackle position that the money is only going to continue to go up. By the time that, and the reality of this deal is it's a 3-year, $20 million deal. The 4th year is probably not going to be seen. It'll be renegotiated or part ways, one way or the other. I mean, this is basically 3 for $60. And in that sense, I think the Chiefs view it as a bit of a bargain, because I think by 2025, it's not going to be the number 4 tackle money. I think it's going to be much further down the list.
I have to think so as well. And what you do in effect is you get younger, you get more athletic, you get a polar opposite in terms of Jawaan Taylor is plus below the waist in terms of the way that he can move, and he's not as aggressive, not as physical above. He does have the arm length, but he's not like that top heavy upper body type player that Orlando Brown is in terms of his recovery ability. So it's definitely a turn, but you got into it there. Like, this is a lot of money, particularly for a right tackle. And I think that there's just this connotation because of the comments. And what do you make of them, of the Chiefs saying that they plan to play him at left?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think it absolutely points to just giving them options, because you look at what else is left to do. I mean, I'm looking at the market, and I don't see another necessarily starting caliber tackle that the Chiefs are going to be bringing in via free agency. I mean, there's always possibility some new names could pop into it, but particularly, I mean, you're also talking about a budget. So, I mean, the Chiefs have kind of put their budget into their offensive line. Now, one of the things they have going for them is that even though they're paying Joe Thuney a lot of money, they're not paying their center and they're not paying their right guard very much money. That's something that you can get away with. And like I said, I think the Chiefs would even, scrimp at some other positions if they needed to, if the opportunity existed to get another all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber tackle that they could bring in here at either left or right. I mean, now the option's open. They're not pigeonholed either way. But I think the more important thing is they're not pigeonholed in the draft either. And that's one thing that, Brett Veach does not like to be in, and no GM wants to be in, going into a draft where you feel like you have to come out with a player at a specific position. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the Chiefs would like to be able to go into the draft and get a tackle. But right now, if they had to go play a game tomorrow and Jawaan Taylor's on the left and Lucas Niang was on the right, I think they would be okay with that. But now they're in a position, there's a left tackle that starts dropping into the 20s. Maybe they can go up from 31. They can make an investment and go grab the player that they like. If there's a right tackle that they really love, tell you what, you can grab plug and play right tackles just like Jawaan Taylor in the second round, sometimes third round. So, that really, to me, gives them a ton of freedom about where they go next and how they address either the right or the left side. They've got that option. And I think you're right about when you talk about, Taylor and his athleticism. That's what I think makes him different, and particularly the age, because you look at the rest of the free agent market at tackle, it's all older guys who are not as athletic. And, and I think the Chiefs were saying here, they would rather have an athletic 25-year-old at left tackle than a veteran 31-year-old. And that's probably the right move for a team that's, that wants an ascending player and not somebody who's plateaued or on the downside of their career.
I like that plan. It opens up the options. I know it's free agency right now, but there are a couple other twists that we have coming. We're going to talk about trades in the next segment right after this. A message from our friends at FanDuel, because it's NBA season. Madness is about to kick off. I know all you Jayhawk fans want to put some action down. I don't blame you. I probably will as well. But right now, it is the time to get FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now they're giving you a no-sweat first bet. You make a bet of $5 and fails, you can earn up to $1,000 in bonus bets applied to your account that help you win some of that back. It's safe, secure, and easy to use, and you don't have to do anything special. You can do money line, you can do three-pointers, you can do offensive rebounds, you can roll it all together in a same-game parlay and actually pick who fouls out first, because that's always one of my favorites too. So don't miss your chance right now. A no-sweat first bet from FanDuel, up to $1,000 in bonus bets applied to your account at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Right over there under Matt, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and learn all about it. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the NFL. Now, if I had a partner, it would be, tell me everything that's about to happen. I would like a crystal ball, please. I would make some money that way. But we don't have that. But what you said rang true for me, because there is this rumor out that they are still looking for talent in a number of positions. We're going to talk wide receivers coming up here in a little bit too, folks. But right now at the tackle spot. And that's why I feel like saying, hey, we got this shiny new tackle. We're going to play him on the left, even though I'm not so sure that's the intention at all, other than emergency situation. The exploration of a trade for Laremy Tunsil, who is arguably the top left tackle in the league. I mean, what other "I love you, honey" present do you give Patrick Mahomes than here's a shiny new top of the line left tackle? Is this in any way a possibility, Matt? When you look at the numbers, when you look at the fit, when you look at what has to happen cap wise, it's a stretch, but is it feasible to you?
It is feasible. It absolutely is. I mean, and from a cap standpoint, you're right. I mean, you talk about adding another big contract, and if you got Laremy Tunsil, you would rework that so you could certainly make it, a little bit more favorable from a cap standpoint, especially in 23. But there's two ways that it works. I mean, one is that obviously what I alluded to earlier, the Chiefs have a core young nucleus that's going to be affordable 23, 24, and even a little bit into 25. And the Chiefs are also hoping that this year they're going to get another, core young group of players in this year's draft that can help augment that. So, they really see themselves being a team that is going to be able to really kind of scrimp at some positions because they're going to be paying some really good players not very much money for a few seasons. And even Jawan Taylor's contract is kind of structured that way. I mean, it's structured so that the bigger hits are in 24 and 25 when, they're going to have a little bit more. The cap is going to continue to go up and the Chiefs have some favorable contracts. So, I mean, they can structure things that way. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, if Laremy Tunsil came to Kansas City, this would be the best offensive line in the league. And I'm not sure that there would be, any competition. I mean, I think it'd be a fair stretch from that to number two. And, Patrick Mahomes could probably go out and get a sandwich, every play. I mean, that would be ideal for the Chiefs. I mean, is it feasible? Yes. Is it likely? I still think it's going to be tough to get done because my sense is that Houston wants a big payday in draft picks. And even though the Chiefs have that currency, I don't get the sense that they're really looking to give a lot of currency in draft picks to get the deal done, especially since they're going to have to turn around and pay him. And the Chiefs really don't want to let go of their 23rd, their 23 first round pick. They don't want to let go of 31. So, if Houston wanted a first round pick, they would probably have to wait until 2024 to get some other selections from the Chiefs. Is that good enough? I don't know, because I think the Chiefs, in even return, would probably want something like the Orlando Brown deal in that they might be willing to include a one, but I think they would want more back too.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. And it's an interesting scenario because he is 29 years old. We forget that. And it rings true to me that if it were to get done, this is like an instant restructure, like you said. I think an instant extension that takes him out to about 32 years old, a 3-year like we often see them do, that is able to be the end. And I think that actually, if it were to be true, maybe you can stand to get a little bit older because of the caliber of play, but it can't last forever. And it is a stretch. It puts you in a hole in a couple of other places. There's still things to get done, like a Chris Jones extension and a restructure of the bonus for the roster for Patrick Mahomes. Yes, you can recoup that, but that has its penalties as well. So there's still things to be done. I think trade is probably the less likely than just riding it out and being able to select a tackle, say someone that falls to 19, Matt. 19 is our target. That's where we're going to have to go for the guy that we feel the Chiefs deserve. We'll talk about that in a draft show, upcoming episode, folks. But today, as free agency continues to unfurl, they lost Andrew Wiley, so that you understand that. Orlando Brown hasn't found a home yet. It brings me to some of the things that we were talking about as the Chiefs being possibly able to return some of their free agents. As we started to record this, Jody Fortson's been tender, so we know he's going to be back in the flock. That was a pretty much a foregone conclusion. But along with the Laremy Tunsil trade rumors, there's also trade rumors for one particular 31-year-old point of contact, go up and get the ball type receiver from Arizona. And this feels even more far-fetched to me and less feasible. But that aside, wide receivers have not been talked about enough in free agency. It doesn't seem that they're moving off the block very much. I think it's a reaction to what we saw last year. Does that help the Chiefs in making this and even close to a possibility? Do they even want D-hoppers? This just rattle the cages.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. As a Chiefs fan, and some of you all engage in it, so I'll warn you there too. You're just going to have to live with the fact that the Chiefs are going to be associated with every living wide receiver, and probably some who are not. for the rest of your natural lives, as long as Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. I mean, and hey, Brett Veach feeds into it a little bit too because he kicks the tires on every single thing, even if it's not something that they do. It's something that they will investigate. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the trades, to me, D Hopkins is definitely one I think that's probably a little bit further down the list because, again, I think that's one that, Arizona probably wants more in return than a lot of teams would be willing to give up, including the Chiefs, especially because the Chiefs can get a lot of receivers without a whole lot of effort, without giving anything up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are to believe, and I do, the reports that Patrick Mahomes has got pretty much every free agent wide receiver in the league hitting him up, trying to get him to Kansas City. I mean, that's not the time when you go out and you make and trade for receivers that you can give a lot of money to. Take advantage of that. And this market right now is shaping up for the Chiefs because, as you mentioned, this is not last year's wide receiver market. Teams are a little bit more hesitant this year. I think they are reacting to a lot of teams overpaying last year and some guys getting some big money. It's also that it's just not a very lucrative crop of free agents at wide receiver this year. I mean, I would make the case that Juju Smith, setting aside, the questions about Odell Beckham Jr., I'd say Juju is the best receiver in this free agent class. And there's a lot of people who would disagree with me because, they're like, they'd point to the injuries. So then it's Jacoby Myers, I mean, is he one of the best receivers? Probably. But so far, everybody that we're seeing get deals, I mean, they're right at that $11 million mark per year. And to me, that's great for the Chiefs because if that means that you can maybe, get Juju Smith a little bit cheaper, that's what I would be trying to do if I'm Kansas City. And also, I think the way that this receiver market is developing, don't sleep on the possibility that maybe some people can return to this team because most of the bigger deals obviously get done on day one of free agency. So, a lot of the big money we're going to see yesterday. There's probably going to be a few more big money deals on Wednesday when free agency actually opens. But it's not long before that second wave starts to kick in. And if guys like McCole Hardman don't have long-term deals somewhere else, I mean, I will start to seriously wonder if maybe McCole returning on a one-year prove-it deal doesn't become a possibility.
I want to talk about a bunch of the possibilities at this position, at wide receiver, as well as some of the defensive positions, because I have questions to get your input on there too. But first, a message from our friends that run the most fun game that lets you act like you are the GM. You too can be Brett Veach.
We are really pumped about our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, Ultimate Football GM, the mobile game. I know you've dreamed of being a GM before. This lets you do it. Hiring the right coaches, coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating through free agency. It's all included. It's challenging. It's realistic. And you can get into it now. There's no limit. You can play 30, 40 seasons if you want. And right now, our listeners get 100% free boost when they sign up for their franchise with our promo code Locked On. It lets you be the ultimate GM. That's what it's for. You go to their game store, you use our code Locked On to make sure that you get it. Download the game. It's ultimate-gm.com, or you can look it up on the app stores, whichever you prefer. It's ultimate-gm.com. That's where you can start your dynasty today.
Now, dynasty aside, I think this is part of it. It was really interesting that you brought up one of the points that I was going to say, that it's now finally, I think after the second Super Bowl title, I think that's the tipping point. And now we're seeing wide receiver free agents, but I think free agents in general are going to want to flock to KC more and more and more, especially when they realize wide receiver may be a revolving door. Edge rusher has been a revolving door for someone to get decent snaps and a ring. You just got to take a pay cut. I think the same could become true of the safety position. I want to talk about all these. Juju Smith-Schuster, you mentioned last, I do agree with you. I think the system, the getting in with Patrick Mahomes, I do think that is a natural progression. I just think it's going to come down to the dollars. But the other two receivers that I think are really intriguing, both are older, and you mentioned one, we'll get to OBJ in a second, but rumor today, more and more we're hearing about Adam Thielen. Now, Adam is a guy that has spent his career in Minnesota, grew up a Minnesota fan. So it feels like more of a departure for him to go outside of that organization, but clearly that's an option. It is more, I think, at his point in his career, a payday. But do you feel right now, after, 9 seasons in, that he has the kind of experience that they do want in Kansas City, knowing that MVS is currently still here as well?
Yeah, I don't know if experience is a huge thing that they're looking for at receiver. I mean, I think they're looking for comfort more than anything else, and that's comfort with the offense, comfort with Mahomes. And I think anybody can do that. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, if you're talking about expecting somebody to contribute early on with the Chiefs and the complexity of Andy Reid's offense, you definitely need somebody with some NFL experience. But I don't know if it necessarily has to be somebody with Thielen's experience. I mean, I think even just, having 4 or 5 years in the league, if you've got some West Coast experience that can, if there's some terminology in your background that can help you make the transition, I think that helps. But I don't think it's absolutely huge. I mean, I do think that when they're looking at veteran receivers, you've hit on the primary factor it's going to be affordability. It's not going to be, with MVS, I think that was more definitely about getting a piece that, you felt for the Chiefs could be that connective guy for a few seasons to at least make sure that you've got some, continuity in the offense. But, I think they're going to be looking for guys for that 1-year deal, because Justin Watson was a 1-year deal guy. Juju Smith-Schuster was a 1 year with incentives kind of guy. If players like Thielen are looking for that, I mean, it's a 1-year incentives and a chance to win a ring, Chiefs are going to be interested. But I don't think they're going to be interested in giving any, older receiver. That's why, even the Odell Beckham Jr. I didn't fold in this conversation. Is he, with the injury history, somebody into their 30s that you want to be making long-term commitments to? I don't think the Chiefs are in that business. I think with receivers at that age, it's going to be, if you want to come here and win a ring and get a chance to make a lot of money and incentives, that's the place that's where you can come to Kansas City.
You can add your name to the dynasty list, right? As we continue to roll through some of these positions. Okay, so I think we see it very similarly. The thing that I am a little concerned about is there is no talk anywhere about any edge rushers coming back, returning, new guys, no nothing. I know there's some interesting names out there, all older. I don't think the juice is necessarily worth the squeeze here at the edge position. It feels more and more like we're heading for a high priority in the draft. Do you see it that way as well?
Yeah, it certainly more seems like that. And I think that also Brett Veach is banking on that the second and third and even fourth waves of free agency are where the bargains are going to be at that position. Really look at the last couple of years, whether it's been trades or whether it has been, in training camp with picking up Carlos Dunlap. There are good players that are going to be available late for cheap money. And so I can't see the Chiefs, for instance, right now offering a long-term deal and a lot of money for, a Carlos Dunlap tap or a Calais Campbell. I don't think that's, where they're going to be putting their money right now. If it gets to be May, June, July, yeah, you're going to get to see, I think, the Chiefs serious about anybody that's still left and that. But I think that, they feel with Chris Jones on the inside, you've got George Karlaftis, you've got the base right there for what you want. There's definitely going to be some building. I mean, are the Chiefs going to be investing, I think, in, probably inside and outside on the defensive line in the draft? Strong possibility. And I still think that they're going to be interested in trying to bring back some of their own guys. I mean, if once again, Derek Nottie and Colin Saunders don't find deals, Chiefs will be interested. It's just going to be, once again, it's going to circle back to affordability. And I think for both those spots, you're going to see the Chiefs looking for bargains.
I like that as well. And poor Colin, I understand via his social media chain that he's feeling the stress here in this particular situation. So, hey, maybe that does lead to a return.
Hey, that kid wears his heart on his sleeve, and and I know he doesn't want to leave Kansas City. None of these guys want to leave Kansas City. So when the money comes in and the offers start coming in and the options are going somewhere else, it's hard. I mean, even when they know that they're going to be making more money. I mean, Washington clearly offered Andrew Wiley more money than he was going to be able to get in Kansas City, and it's a hard decision, man. I mean, these guys love it here, and it's been a great locker room for these guys.
Yeah, it goes a long way. So that said, we'll wrap it up on your Nostradamus routine. If you had to pick one player who does make it back, who is it?
I mean, I was asked earlier today, I'm going to stick with my prediction about what's the next position that the Chiefs are going to sign, and I'm going to stick with receiver because I think that's the one where obviously they probably need the most bodies right now. Mm-hmm. If they're going to do anything at tackle, I mean, I think that would still be a trade, and I don't necessarily think that's a given. it's lower possibility. But I'm going to say the Chiefs get something done with receiver. I think it's probably Juju, most likely. Could be surprised, but I think that's the next place that they're going to strike. It could be somebody that's, once again, maybe it is going to be one of these veterans that's looking for a 1-year prove it deal. But right now there's some bargains in the receiver market. So might be time to strike while you can.
Let's go get them. We'll have all for it as it unwinds, folks. Remember, we are 5 days a week all off season. Doesn't matter that they have a new fresh Lombardi in their trophy case. We're still going to be covering every move that they make all week long. And Matt, thank you for setting us straight on where it sits right now. We'll see what happens by the time we're back next week.
It's probably going to change by the time we get done recording. So
yeah, well, you had to go say it. Well, with that, folks, for today's update, he's Matt Derrick. I'm Ryan Tracy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.